So, over the past few days, I've been reporting to you all that the U.S. military is sending soldiers to Israel. And, the White House, they keep trying to reassure everyone that there's nothing to worry about because these troops aren't being sent over there for combat purposes, even though they're being sent into the middle of a war zone as rockets and missiles are being launched at Israel from multiple countries, multiple angles, multiple terrorist cells launching missiles and rockets at Israel constantly. It's a state of war. It's only going to get worse. But the White House and the Pentagon, they keep trying to assure everyone that there's nothing at all to worry about. That these troops are going to be perfectly fine and they're not going to get involved in the war, basically. Now, of course, that doesn't really make sense at all. I think that most of us would agree with that, but I just find it funny that they are bold enough to blatantly lie like that, especially as we see how everything is unfolding over there right before our eyes. I mean, last night there was massive protest in multiple countries. I'm not talking about militias and military groups. I'm talking about regular people by the thousands taking to the streets, marching directly to U.S. embassies and American military or U.S. military bases. Rioting, protesting, getting violent, going ham, basically, outside of these embassies. Outside of bases and, let's just say, locations where U.S. troops were stationed or where U.S. troops were at the time. So it's already getting violent in other countries that aren't even directly involved with this conflict yet. Troops are already at risk of attack in other countries that aren't even involved in this war yet. So I don't see how they wouldn't be, I don't see how we can just assume that nothing's going to happen to these troops if we send them to Israel. Now, meanwhile, as the White House continues to try to reassure everyone that everything's okay, U.S. troops just got attacked earlier today in Iraq. And I believe this was the first time in almost a year, around like 9 months, that they had a situation like this happen. But multiple drones in multiple locations were targeting U.S. troops in Iraq. So if our troops aren't safe in Iraq, where it's been relatively calm lately, a place where this war is not happening, you know what I mean? If they're not safe there, mind you, like I said, it's been months and months and months since anything's really happened there, then how are they going to be safe in Israel? But I want to go ahead and read to you all about the situation that happened earlier because it's directly tied with what's happening in Israel. And it's just, a sign of what's to come. The whole Middle East is basically on fire now. And it looks like it's going to be something worse than what we've seen in the Middle East in the past. I know, there's Operation Desert Storm, the situation that broke out after 9/11. I believe all of us are kind of familiar with wars in the Middle East. It's something that's been going on for decades now. But this is a little different. We're going to see people, I believe, or countries and militias and certain outlets, if you will, because some of these countries, they're not necessarily going to fight you with their military. They have little militias and little terrorist cells and just little groups, little proxies that they use to fight these battles. So I really believe that it can get really bad. And I think that's why we're sending so much firepower and now troops on the ground over there. But let's see what's going on over here in Iraq. The U.S. military shoots down drones headed towards troops in Iraq. The U.S. military intercepted multiple aerial drones targeting its troops stationed in Iraq earlier Wednesday, the Pentagon announced, as U.S. officials are on heightened alert for potential attacks on American forces in the Middle East amid an escalating conflict. U.S. forces defended against 3 drones in Iraq, where 2,500 American troops are stationed, according to a statement from U.S. Central Command. 2 were in the west, threatening troops at Al-Assad Air Base, and 1 was in the north of the country, said a U.S. official. In western Iraq, the American military engaged 2 drones, destroying 1 and damaging the second, resulting in minor injuries to forces in the coalition to defeat the Islamic State, which includes both U.S. and partner troops, according to the statement. In northern Iraq, U.S. forces engaged and destroyed a 3rd drone, resulting in no injuries or damage. The Wednesday incidents marked the first such attack on U.S. positions in Iraq in at least 9 months. The failed attack comes as Biden arrived in Israel earlier on Wednesday to show support after Hamas launched an attack on Israel. So, like I said, this situation is spilling over into other countries. And if we see, a new outbreak of violence in Iraq where we have troops stationed where, like I said, I don't know if peaceful is really the word to use, but things have been kind of chill and calm over there for months on end. And now it seems like we're having these outbursts of violence that can spill over into something bigger. And before you know it, we're not even necessarily talking about what's going on in Israel anymore. We're dropping more troops off in Iraq and in other places. So, it's one of those situations where there's so many little factors at play here. There's so many different things that can happen. There's so many possibilities that all lead to us basically getting further involved in just a whole bunch of chaos in the Middle East. There's troops in different places in the Middle East. And if we see these attacks in Iraq, and if we see, an uptick in violence and attacks on U.S. troops in other places in the Middle East, who knows what's bound to happen. But yes, Biden did go to Israel earlier today. Here's what he had to say after his visit.
Virtually every mass shooting, every circumstance where a large number of people have been victimized and lost, I've spoken to them. I learned a long time ago what you've all learned in your life. When someone's going through something that is beyond their comprehension, they've ever thought they'd have to go through. If they see someone who they think understands, or maybe been through something not the same but similar, it gives them some sense of hope. And I always get criticized sometimes by my staff because when I go to these events, I stay for 3 to 4 hours and answer all their questions. But it matters. It matters a lot. And look, I'm talking, some of you have gone through a hell of a lot more than I've gone through, and a lot more than other people have gone through. And you understand. So it's just people are looking for just something to grab, something that gives them some sense of hope. And that's, if I can do a little bit of that, then it's worth doing. Done for me.
So tomorrow night, Biden is actually supposed to address the nation about the current situation in Israel. Now, things can get canceled and things can change, but this is supposed to happen tomorrow night. Now, looking at history And looking at the current chain of events, usually this would be the speech that our president would give, announcing that we're basically going to war, or announcing that we're basically about to get involved in a war. That's what this speech would usually be. And the reason I say that is because we've started positioning our aircraft carriers and our ships, right? So we've started positioning our military. We're in the process of sending troops. We're in the process of putting boots on the ground. In the middle of this fight, our president went and met with the leader in Israel. Now, if you look at history, when you see, the military getting in position, and you see a world leader meet with another world leader that is, that's at war, and then the next day after meeting with that world leader, your world leader giving an address to their nation, usually it would be, hey, our troops are in position. I've met with their leader. We're getting ready to aid them in this war. That's usually how this would go. Now, tomorrow, no one has any idea what may happen. Because we are in a very interesting situation. Not only are we in an interesting situation when it comes to this war, but politically, and I don't try to, dive into politics too much, but politically, Joe Biden has been put in a tough spot because I believe his own voter base, I believe a lot of them are pro-Hamas, the Palestinian side of things. So I think he's in an interesting position. Also, what happened yesterday with the explosion at the hospital, I know that both sides are still pointing the finger at each other. Right now, there seems to be more evidence on Israel's side that Hamas actually, a failed rocket or something caused it, but we don't know. I've seen photos earlier today, and I can say that the damage to this hospital was not as extensive as reported. But it doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter who bombed the hospital. What matters is how people feel about it. And people are already enraged, and people have already chosen their sides. So I don't know if our country right now and our current administration is going to feel comfortable announcing what's really probably about to go down. So even if Biden doesn't announce that we're going to get involved in this war, we most definitely are because we're already in position. But usually you would see that announcement. I don't know how they're going to try to play things tomorrow. I don't expect them to tell the truth. And like I said, they're in a tough position because most of Joe Biden, not most, but a good portion of Joe Biden's voter base right now is against the decision to, help Israel in this situation. Most of them are pro the other side. So we'll see how things play out. Who knows? Expect the unexpected. Maybe we'll just hear a whole bunch of mumbling. You never know. Let me know your thoughts about all of this, though, down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all soon in the next video.